If you think of running your own business, as your business scales, you get more and more users. Great problem to have. And the challenge when you get more and more users is your account manager physically does not have enough time to talk to every single user. Your account manager's main focus is on working with the decision makers, your champions, to nurture that relationship, to make sure that everything that you're spending the money on, if you're spending $500,000 with us, how is it achieving your business priorities or your personal objectives? Compared to someone who knows everything about the product, so it also depends on who you're selling to. Example, if you're selling in financial services to a hedge fund, to a portfolio manager, they're very time-starved. Like, just tell me what you can do, what's better. I don't want to build a relationship with you yet. Then to that persona, your hard skills can be very important. They really want to know that they're working with someone they can trust and can build a long-term relationship with. Then the soft skills become a bigger factor. So the context matters as well. Who are we selling to? What kind of solution are we selling to?
Welcome back to the TFC Business Show. I'm your host, Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut. And today I am asking a very pertinent question. So I think as business grow, every business owner thinks about this, right? How do I increase my sales? How do I grow more sales rev? How do I be more efficient? Everybody wants to know. Essentially, especially a lot of smaller businesses, that's what they think of day in, day out, right? So I'm very glad to be in studio with Daren. So for audience that don't know you, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me to the Financial Coconut, Reggie. My name's Daren, and I'm a sales coach in a US tech company called AlphaSense, AI market intelligence company. And I spent most of my career in tech sales before joining AlphaSense.
How do you become a sales coach? Not every day someone becomes, and there are a lot of weird sales coach out there. Hey, sorry. Essentially I'm trying to understand who give you the rights to talk about this category, right? Yeah.
What happened was I started my sales career in a headhunting company, Michael Page, through LinkedIn, naturally. And I joined LinkedIn for 2 years as an account executive. And after 2 years, friends in LinkedIn joined Google and referred me to Google. So I spent 7.5 years in Google in 3 different roles. My first role as a SMB AE, working with small businesses. Second role as an enterprise AE, working with large clients.
You move up the value chain.
Different values, different joys with small and large enterprises. And towards the end of my second role, someone reached out to me. And at Google, we have this program called G to G, Googler to Googler, where 80% of our trainings are done by volunteers, by Googlers. So whether it's yoga training, sales training, they're all done by volunteers because we're so talented people. And every year, they send your top 1% of G to Gers to headquarters, the Mountain View, as an incentive trip, more training, more learning. And over there, a lady, like Kelsey, she reached out to me and said, "Hey, Daren, we're starting this thing called Google Sales School. Are you keen?" And I thought, well, sales has always paid the bills for me, and coaching was my calling, something I'm very passionate about. So it was a rare opportunity to bring both worlds together. That's how I first became a sales coach. In the world of tech sales, you hear the term enablement, sales enablement. So that's the formal title of this team. And so I joined sales enablement in Google first. That was almost 5 years ago now. And we built Google Sales School. That was an award-winning program where we onboarded our global sellers for 3 weeks. They ramped up on core sales skills to make sure that they're productive and more self-sufficient immediately. So that's how I first got into becoming a sales coach from a sales role.
Fair. So essentially, Daren just went on the whole spiel, right, to tell you, can listen to me. He said, I got record, I know what I'm doing, right?
I have a record making so many mistakes, so I can tell you what not to do.
Okay, yes. Fair. But just to dig a little bit into that Google story, right,
yes.
of yours, you sound like the very extra kind of guy. Like you gotta be very active, be that 1%, go and teach other people, and then you get the opportunity to go up. Is there some thought process around why does Google do something like that, In
a lot of tech companies, and Google's not alone, a lot of people are driven, they're hungry, and when they find a good idea, they often want to share it. It's like TED Talks. The whole idea of TED is to talk about ideas worth spreading. And in tech companies, the philosophy and what I always coach our sellers is you've got to think about work that is low effort, high impact, high scalability. If you only work hard, it's not a recipe to be successful. The foundation is working smart first. Then when you complement that with working hard, you become extremely successful.
Okay.
And that was a mindset that really drove me to be a volunteer, coach new sellers, and I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to become a sales coach.
Okay. Everybody say they are fortunate to have an opportunity, but there are some skill sets involved. So it's not all luck, right? We'll go there into the framework and the thought process and the system, right? Okay, so maybe just to lay the backdrop, even clearer on this, right? So for a lot of businesses these days, they may rely on a few very good salespeople, right? I mean, if not, they wouldn't be a business to begin with, right? So they have, especially I think in our part of the world, at least that's my read on the situation. Even some of the bigger companies, they got like superstars, on their team. They hold all the connections. They do all the big deals. I don't know if that's a fair statement. Maybe you can share with me your thought process.
It's fair in many companies. Generally, like what we hear about the Pareto principle, the 80-20, that extends in sales as well. Typically, 20% of your sellers or 20% of your engineers can contribute up to 80% of the impact.
Yeah, fair. So what I'm trying to get to, right, it's then how do I kind of route out of this situation? At least for a lot of businesses, right, for business owners or management, right, nobody wants to be tied to one or two very good people, right? They don't want the seafood to hold everything, Everybody wants like a system that can, not say run itself, but at least de-risk from key men, and then scale, right? Because like you said from the start, right? It's like, okay, you just very good, one or two guys, very good. You can't go far. That's why many people are stuck at a certain size, right? So I think that lays the backdrop of like why I want to do this episode to try to create this whole thought process of like, okay, how do I, set up a scalable sales process and a sales system, especially with tech and all that good stuff. So maybe with that as the backdrop, you can lay out your ideology. Help me understand, how do you think of the whole sales process?
In the context of talent, let's start with the sales process first. In any company, typically a sales process, a company's leadership, together with their board, the investors, they form a go-to-market plan. How do we win? What's our right product market fit? Once you narrow down, okay, these are the personas we want to sell to be very successful, then you start working with sales operations or in smaller SMEs, the founders themselves, to decide everything, right? Your Pao Ka Liao as a founder to determine like what's the territory, which are the core markets, the core personas to play, where do we have the right to win, where do we have more established, warmer relationships to start off with first. And then you have a sales team. And the sales team starts doing their research, their prep for their book of business, and they will then reach out to clients, call the right personas, set up the first meetings. There will be many objections along the way. Then you get that first meeting. You work really hard to get that first meeting, and it's about really understanding what the client needs first. So you hear in sales a lot, discovery. The reason why they call it discovery and not asking questions is because discovery means it's almost like looking for like dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, right? The fossil. You're just unearthing, layers and layers and layers. At first, maybe this looks like a triceratops. But you dig deeper, there are claws. Is it a velociraptor? But then suddenly the bones are very big. Actually, this is a freaking T-Rex in there. So that's why in sales, they call it discovery. You're really going deep with the client to really understand what's important for them. And that first meeting, then typically in most sales companies, the account executive would have a demo of our solution, of our product. Here's what it looks like. Here's what it could potentially do for you. Here's how your peers are using it to get value, to save time, to get better insights. And then if a client goes, that makes sense, then there usually is an evaluation phase where sometimes a client asks, hey, can I try this product or not? Or they go, actually, can you spend an hour with all the analysts in my team to really understand how this works? So they can better qualify. Like evaluation means they're deciding, do I want to buy this or not? Like what is my criteria I need to hit to buy this solution? So then it's evaluation. And after they decide, I've seen everything I need to see already, then it becomes commercial discussions. Yes, I want 5 accounts for my team. What's the price? How does it work? How do I pay you? What are the payment terms? The length of contract? What else can you give me? What kind of support we can get? There's a whole negotiation phase. Then once you get that first contract signed with the client, you go through procurement, legal, everything, then the journey doesn't end. That's just step 1 of the relationship with the client. Where now an account executive works as an account manager with a customer success team to ensure that when anyone buys any software in the context of US tech companies, the first year is most critical. Or like you think of a consumer, you buy Netflix or Disney Plus, you think about, am I going to renew? So that first renewal is critical. And for most SaaS companies, it's a 1-year contract or 2-year contract. And if we can get through that first renewal, then we also earn the right to say, how can we grow that relationship? We don't want to be too mature and upsell when the client said, I haven't even seen value yet. You sold me the dream. Let me deliver the dream first before we grow together. And through that, then the client's happy. They refer new friends, new business units, or even family members working in other companies. And then you get the whole cycle of the sales journey.
Okay, that's the end of the episode today. but actually that is very clean the way you talked about it. You know, I mean, you've definitely trained every day.
Practice makes better. That means I've made a lot of mistakes to get there.
Yeah. Fair. So I have so many questions to ask, you know, when it comes to the different segments of the sales process. But maybe the first question I wanted to drive, so it's actually there's a whole funnel, right? And we'll talk about the team building aspect of it slightly later. Based on what you were saying, personally, I want to understand about this customer success team element, right? So I think for smaller outfits, there tend to be a situation where the account manager is also the customer success.
Everything.
One person gotta do everything, right? But what is the kind of value when you think of from a sales coach perspective, right? Where the person that is just managing the account and customer success team, what is that
what's
kind
the
of
difference?
what's the difference? What's the segregation of job, and how does that then, you know, derive higher impact, you know, and from a bottom line?
So the reason why this comes about is if you think of running your own business, as your business scales, you get more and more users. Great problem to have. And the challenge when you get more and more users is your account manager physically does not have enough time to talk to every single user. Your account manager's main focus is on working with the decision makers, your champions, to nurture that relationship, to make sure that everything that you're spending the money on, if you're spending $500,000 with us, how is it achieving your business priorities or your personal objectives? So the account manager's focus should always fairly be first on the decision makers, the champions, the executive sponsors. And as a company scales, they realize that they need a customer success team to continue nurturing the relationship with users to ensure that users find value. Now, customer success can be driven with humans, like you could have a product specialist, or in some tech companies, they literally call it customer success manager. Or as companies scale, we should come to it later, they also think about technology. How can technology assist? How can technology be simpler? Nowadays, in a lot of consumer products we use, you will see like there's a prompt there, like it prompts you, hey, I noticed you're trying to do X. Here's how you could do X.
Yeah.
So the technology helps to scale, especially in the long tail or the SMB side. With enterprise accounts, very large accounts, the reason why there's a human customer success team is because very often if you're talking to a large enterprise, they are expecting a tailored solution. They're not buying something off the shelf like an SMB.
So that high touch element is still very important in today's market. Is it an Asia thing, or is it like across the board you think these type of like customer success managers and like account managers, that kind of high touch element is still very important?
Globally, high touch is important on all enterprise sales if you think of your largest accounts. In Asia specifically, because of our culture, our values, it is valued even more.
More extra.
Even more.
You gotta do even more.
Now in Asia, even then, there's a whole spectrum, right? We've got Australia's markets like Australia, New Zealand, where it's more like Western culture. We've got markets like Japan or China, where that additional touch is valued. We have markets like Southeast Asia, like you go do business in Jakarta and KL, they do value the informal relationships as well. So high touch isn't just pure professional. There is, am I buying from someone I trust? Do I trust this person to have my back, to know my business? So very often when I coach sellers, when you remind them, you're not just selling a solution, you're selling yourself as well. Because today, people buy from people. 10 years from now, companies could have their own chat bot or procurement bot buying from other bots. Until we get there, we don't just sell a solution, we sell ourselves. Because if there are two equally compelling solutions, the client's going to buy from the person. The person becomes a differentiator. Sometimes a seller works in a company that has great product market fit, very strong differentiation. Sometimes you could be selling printers and the differentiation may not be as strong. And then selling yourself becomes a critical driver.
Okay, fair. That one, I think most people get it, right? You know, in especially I think in Asia, people get it, right? Like especially when the product is not highly differentiated, you know, you do need some charismatic people, and then they will support in that sales process, right? It's a big part of it, right? So if we bring it to the whole aspect of then growing a sales team, you know, how do you then recruit for the type of people that you want as part of your optimal sales team? Because it so often feels like there's a tussle between finding somebody that's very charismatic, that has all the street smartness about them, and as opposed to somebody that, maybe it's a bit more technically driven, in the aspects. Just want to understand your point of view.
I hear you mention like charisma a few times. Drawing back, a very common question a lot of board of directors or chief revenue officers ask is, what kind of people do we hire? And the common currency I've seen the most successful sellers across most companies, small and large, the ability to be curious, genuinely curious, to understand their clients' needs, to speak the client's language, and someone who's highly coachable. And lastly, someone's very resilient, because we get a lot more no's than yeses in sales. And very often in sales, no just means I don't see value yet or not now. And a seller works really hard with the client on that journey to get there. It may not be today, may not be next month, it could be 6 months from now or even a year from now. So that's what we look for when we grow sales teams: curiosity, coachability, resilience. And you notice that these are soft skills. Because as you know, and most leaders here watching this know, it's easier to train on a hard skill. Like, okay, what kind of brokers are available in AlphaSense, for instance? It's a hard skill compared to a soft skill. Soft skills take a lot more intentional effort to coach on someone, especially if you're hiring an experienced hire.
You sure, huh? That's your worldview, huh? You write in the comment section, see whether you agree. Right? Because there's often this tussle between the people that are like technical and the people that are like charismatic. Some people sound like charismatic hires,
yes.
Right? So, they come to the team, they may not know a lot about the product, but they are super good with the people, and they often shine. So some people don't really like them. But they do bring in the numbers, right? They often bring the numbers.
And I'll give you an example, like when you are able to build strong champions. So a champion, we define it as someone who has access to power, can influence the buying process in a company. Like if you're someone who has the right kind of skills to build champions, it's a soft skill. It's not yet a direct hard skill, like knowing the product or the sector as well. You're able to go, let's say like, if Reggie, you're my champion, I can say, it sounds like we trust each other. I understand your priorities. I'm not yet as familiar with what your team is trying to do. Do you think we can work together to get there? So that's someone with stronger soft skills or EQ is able to do as a seller compared to someone who knows everything about the product. So it also depends on who you're selling to. Example, if you're selling in financial services to a hedge fund, to a portfolio manager, they're very time-starved. Like just tell me what you can do, what's better. I don't want to build a relationship with you yet. Then to that persona, your hard skills can be very important. Right? Sometimes when you're selling to some corporate personas, whether it's to HR or to strategy teams, they really want to know that they're working with someone they can trust and can build a long-term relationship with. Then the soft skills become a bigger factor. So the context matters as well. Who are we selling to? What kind of solution are we selling to?
Okay, fair. So now for the juicy part, right? So today, if given a blank slate, right, how would you build a sales team? In your best-in-class ideas, because you evaluated the whole process, go to market, everything. So we assume that all those things are sorted, right? And then management comes to you and say, okay, this is the plan. I need you to build a sales team. How would you do it?
I think the starting point, like if I was advising a CEO to build a sales team, is first to ask, what is the purpose of a sales team in this company? Because it's very often assumed I need a sales team in every company. So if a CEO is saying, I'm selling to SMBs, I want a scalable solution, then the coaching back to CEO would be, do you really need a sales team to achieve that? Or should we scale that with product? Should it be a self-serve product that scales and we have customer support to support the product strategy? If a CEO is going, we want to work with the largest banks, the largest corporates, the large Fortune 500, then the purpose of the sales team is to open the door, really understand the procurement process, the buying journey. You can't do that with a computer or a product. You need a sales team to do that. So the very first question is, what purpose does a sales team serve? Because that will also determine, one, do we even want a sales team? What the size of the sales team? And then second is, what are our ambitions? Are we growth or profitability focused? If you're growth focused, our pace of hiring goes up, which means having a very strong enablement team to quickly ramp up sellers at scale becomes critical. If there's no rush, let's take our time, let's prove the business model first, then your hiring does not need to be as quick. The quality of a few really strong sellers will play a big role, and you can scale deliberately at a pace. For most companies, the answer is somewhere in between, where you want sustainable growth. You cannot not grow like we cool with the status quo. We're at 100 million a year. We cool with that for the next 5 years.
Yeah, then we shouldn't be here.
And if you're a company with public aspirations, public investors look for growth. If you're a private family company, that's different. So the context really matters for like how we advise a CEO on how to grow a sales team. Because it's a saying, if you have a hammer, everything's a nail. It's very easy for someone in sales enablement to say, you must grow sales teams, you must grow sales teams, you must grow sales team. A sales team is a means to an end. So it comes back to what are we trying to achieve?
Okay.
And I'll give you an example, like in some companies, let's say like Meta, they may feel, or some large tech companies, they feel like instead of growing a sales team, because if I have a strategy that requires a sales rep, if I have one in Indonesia, I need to replicate that across 170 countries or hire 170 people. If I hire instead 3 great engineers to make my product so simple that doesn't require a salesperson to articulate value, that would be a more profitable path for my business. So it really depends on what kind of solution and strategy we have.
I like. So let me give you a context, right? So I think for a lot of the listeners, they will be in the SMB categories, right? So they are not targeting, the Fortune 500. Okay, or maybe they are, but most likely the founder will do it themselves, right?
Correct.
So, or there'll be a few hard hitters. They are like core sales. I mean, they call it fighters, right?
Yeah.
The few people they will complete those accounts. They will get those in. But I think for a lot of businesses, at least at SMBs in Singapore, right? The struggle is not there. Everybody understands that high touch, how to make your clients feel good, all those kind of stuff. The struggle is in the one step below, which is setting up a scalable model, targeting all the other SMBs, which you talk about the tech enablement, 3 engineers could beat many sales guys. So if I today am trying to do that type of business, how do you think you can advise me on that?
So let's say we talk about specifically scaling a sales team for as an SMB. So there's this tension, like in very beginning of this podcast, to talk about how people don't want to be too reliant on 1 or 2 great superstar sales reps.
Yeah. It always starts there,
right?
Right, yes.
And the tension is, like for individuals, they want to be indispensable to protect themselves. Like I'm employable, I've got a good reputation, I've got power in the organization. To company owners, they want to ensure that no one is indispensable. So it's always going to be a dance between both, because the individual will always work towards making themselves very indispensable. Like in some banks, for instance, if a great relationship manager leaves, a lot of clients move together.
All move together.
And this is like really big banks in the world, not small SMBs as well. So it's not something that an SMB can immediately solve unless you're saying our product strategy is no sellers. As long as you have a sales team, there will be very strong sellers. And for most of us, 20% of our sales reps will be responsible for up to 80% of the impact. That the way to scale this then is, how do I find more stars? How do I find more strong sellers? And how do I document and scale their good practices?
Okay.
That means creating playbooks, sales playbooks. If we know that this rep has a 2 times higher win rate on a certain persona compared to any other sales rep, interview them. What are you doing well? Sometimes these top performers may not even know why they're doing better. They can't articulate it. And that's where you have sales leaders or sales enablement to really almost like forensics, right? Analyze like, what are their behaviors that are unique or different? Or maybe they're doing the same thing, the what is the same, but the how is different. That means the way they land, the way that they make the customers feel safe is very different. So once you break that down into a playbook, you can then scale it. Now, people think then once you put down a playbook or your top performers' behaviors, that everyone will be good. Strangely, the irony is 80-20 then suddenly becomes like 85-15. That means the people who actually take the effort to go into these playbooks to reinforce these good behaviors tend to be other good performers. They're hungry, they're curious, they want to grow. So the good performers will look at other good performers, say, hey, what are they doing well? I want to do even better. So it becomes 15% of your reps are now contributing up to 85% of your impact. That's really counterintuitive. Now, with that said, the rest of the organization, everyone's lifted up. Everyone's doing better because of your playbooks. However, your best are also doing better. And your best often are doing more improved than the average seller. And so then the way to sustain a business for SMBs, to become a mid-market company, is to think about talent. So when you think of even when Steve Jobs was starting Apple in the garage, all the way up to becoming a Fortune 500 company, he spent a lot of time on hiring the right people. And as an SMB, when you hire the first person like your co-founder, that's 50% of your business. If you're hiring the 10%, that's 10% of your business. So for any SMB, every single talent you bring to is a huge multiplier to your success or to your pain. Because everyone brings both strengths and also challenges. So at least for the first 500 employees, every single person, you hear a lot of stories. The CEO is personally still interviewing, still having the final say on the candidate. Some CEOs harder to let go. Even 1,000 employees, still vetting.
Please let go lah. Tarik a bit right? You already have 1,000 guys.
So then the scaling is leadership being intentional in inspiring the right talent to join the company. Because the right talent connect the dots more quickly. The right talent is able to think all your existing playbooks, understand what success drivers your company, and scale it with you.
Okay, fair. So I want to touch on company secrets, right? So I mean, you talk about this playbook thing. You've probably done playbook with your own guys, right, at AlphaSense. So if you don't mind, within the parameters of not divulging too much of your secrets or however much you can divulge, right? What are some core playbooks that your sales team play?
I'll talk about again what we can find from a lot of good sales coaches, because in our sales enablement team, like some of our team members are also sales coaches that shares good ideas on LinkedIn as well. Some of them are in podcasts like yourself also. And yes, there are things we create. Like the core principles are focus on the client. This is not unique to AlphaSense. And so our company philosophy and mindset is focus on the client first, the company second, your team third, and the individual last. Or you'll hear from companies like Goldman Sachs say, be long-term greedy. That means the quick wins are important, and it's okay sometimes to help your client be successful first so that we maximize the long-term outcome. So when I coach our sales reps, I tell them everyone's going to be in a role on average for 2 to 3 years. Focus on maximizing your 2 to 3 year impact with your client. Sometimes sales reps can be very hungry. I want to prove myself immediately. And they go really hard in the beginning. And sometimes that may jeopardize client relationships. Like, where's it coming from? Why are you so aggressive? Can you stop emailing me every day?
Relax.
Correct.
Relax. Yeah.
So we want to be long-term focused with clients, and the kind of mindset where we think client, company, team, individual is a very important guiding point for us. The other second thing, especially for SMBs, or like when AlphaSense first started in APAC, we're a very young company in APAC as we grow. Companies been around for many years, like 13 years. Here in APAC, when we first started, when I joined in December 2023, it was a very small group of us. So it was almost felt like growing from like building a 0 to 1 business, where we started in a WeWork, we were growing together. Everyone could know each other.
You're not in a WeWork anymore, right?
We still are.
Still,
and we're still growing.
in a WeWork, okay.
And there are a lot of even large Chinese tech companies in WeWorks as well. And so that gives us the flexibility. What's important from the 0 to 1 motion is that everyone has a mindset of an owner. So what I mean by that is an operator, they'll focus on their KPI. This is my KPI. I'm only going to do everything that supports my KPI. Everything else, I don't do. An owner thinks about what's the right thing for my client and my company. Sometimes that may mean I don't personally benefit from it. I'm passing a lead, I'm passing a referral, I'm helping a colleague be more successful, I'm guiding a client, and there's no immediate benefit to the KPI. Owners make a company successful. You look at the most successful companies in the world, they're not KPI driven. They have a very strong vision, mission mindset. And the mission mindset then drives ownership behavior. Well, do the right thing because it matters.
Okay. So I don't think there's a dispute on that, right? Everybody kind of agrees on that. And even I agree on it, right? It's just how do I then translate it to the team, beyond the KPI, take the ownership mentality, and maybe even like, incentive structures, right? Do you have any thoughts on this? Because, okay, put it this way, there will always be X amount of people that believe in the cause, right? So these are your early adopters. So maybe in the early teams, everybody have that, oh yeah, we're going to make this work, right? So these are early adopters. But as a company grows, you quickly grow out of these people, right? You get to a point where you structure, where, people come in, they do treat it like a job. It is what it is, So how do you then, maybe in the context of a sales team, how do you inculcate that kind of ownership energy into them?
The mindset for leaders to have is that this is not a black or white or 0 to 100. What we're trying to do is just increase the percentage of people who are bought in. Because people who are bought in would perform better than people who are compliant. And the way to do that is a shared language, a common goal, a common vision. What I mean by shared language is when you think of a sales team, as you grow a business, you've got sales development reps, you've got account executives, account managers, product specialists. It's very important that everyone is speaking the same common language. Then you can do that through all hands, town halls, and a simple tactical thing that can be done is whenever there's a win, like we win a new client. In most companies, usually the one who gets a contract signed, the account executive, would get a lot of the recognition and the glory. And what we try to be intentional of is anytime there's a win, I always coach our account executives. Again, you are the leader of the cross-functional team. You are the CEO of these 100 accounts in your book of business. When something goes right, recognize how did the sales development rep get you that first meeting. Recognize how the account manager and the product specialist demonstrate value from the solution to the client. If anything goes wrong, call it out on yourself as well. So we try to be intentional that every win in the company, that a cross-functional team is represented and recognized because everyone's involved. When that happens, a small tactical and behavior change, which anyone can do right now, it's not ambiguous, it's very specific. Then everyone is bought in where they go, we're winning together. I used to dragon boat a lot with the Canadian dragon boat team in my P&G days. And it's like dragon boating. All of us are in a boat together. There are no passengers. Everyone paddle. And we win or lose together. You can't be the first two paddlers get first place and the other two get second place. We're either first or we're second together.
Yeah. Maybe the cooks are a bit more relaxed.
Drama.
That's a different story. Okay, fair. So I understand, what you're trying to say, right? Let's dive deeper into this kind of different role segmentation in the sales team, right? So ultimately, there will still be the account managers that are the ones that are deriving the alpha. They are the ones getting the deals. They are the ones closing, right? But from your little explanation just now, there's the sales development guy in front. There's the account manager at the back. There's the product specialist on the side. There are all these other different people that come along over time to support the core sales team, which I think what most people will say account managers these days, right? That's kind of the term. So as I'm scaling my team, my overall sales team, which includes all these other support functions, not that there are any less, what are some of the first few people that I should hire? Like what gives me the alpha? Because everybody will say they're important, right? But how should I go about doing this?
When you think of the initial core roles in starting a company or sales organization, most teams will start with an account executive, because an account executive is the one who hunts and farms, and they can play the role of a sales development rep. If needed, they can play the role of an account manager to manage renewals. If needed, they can play the role of a product specialist to guide users as well. So the account executive role is the very first role that everyone starts with typically. So it means you think about, let's say, the first 5 employees. There usually are 3-4 account executives. Then you start growing sales development, at least the first one in, where they can really focus on that initial cold calls, emails, prospecting, to free up time for the account executives to have the first meeting, the client meetings. But it takes effort to call clients as well. It doesn't mean account executives stop calling clients. They're a complement. They're a very strong support. Then you start growing your product specialist team because you realize that there are a lot of users. And every hour that an account executive spends onboarding a user is an hour they don't spend prospecting and building pipeline for a business. And the core mandate for an account executive is to grow the company. If you're a CEO, you need your account executives to grow your company. So you start hiring product specialists to free up your account executives' time. Then as your customer base grows, then you start hiring account managers to maintain existing relationships, for renewal, to get referrals, to pass to your account executives to continue upselling and growing those accounts. So to recap, account executives first, you build sales development reps next, you bring product specialists, account managers come in, and it continues to grow. And then, like you mentioned, support. Like even right now as we're filming this podcast, we have our marketing team behind the camera who organize all this. Marketing team generates leads. A lot of our leads come from inbound, from marketing. Then we have sales enablement, people like my role, who ensures that if I can make every seller 5% better each month, the alpha, the multiplier becomes significant when we scale from 5 to 50 to 100% sales team.
Thank you. I like that. It's very clear. Who first, what next, what's next. That's very, very nice. Okay, let's talk about the tech part of the business, right? So whatever you said is a very clear process in terms of building a sales team. The sales funnel looks like that. And the talk of the town these days is, you guys are a big AI firm, right? And all these tech softwares and automation and all those kind of stuff, right? What are some core things that your team uses, or like you would think like everybody should have these things, in their arsenal to tech enable their sales team?
Almost every person.
Cannot say yourself, huh? Cannot say Alpha. Cannot say use AlphaSense.
Clearly, right? Clearly,
Yeah,
clearly.
yeah.
It's part of what everyone would use. Today, whether even before your corporate life, even as a student, you're using generative AI to support you.
Yeah, everyone does it.
So you think it almost as a co-pilot. So our world has changed. Like if you're preparing for a client meeting, it would be strange to not at least use some form of Gen AI. It doesn't always need to be AlphaSense. There are many Gen AIs that help you get smart on your client sector, your persona, or even if you're using a public tool like LinkedIn. LinkedIn has Gen AI where you try to understand your account intelligence. What has this person been talking about recently? So Gen AI supports the entire sales process from account research, even up to negotiation. There are some tools where calls are being recorded. And so you're able to map out all the calls, all the emails in the account. And there's Gen AI where you can ask them, what's most important for my decision maker as you craft your proposal? And because it's going to listen to all the previous calls where the person casually said, actually, what's really important is Jerry, who's my procurement head, needs a 5% discount on all contracts. And you may miss that in the conversation if it over like a three-month sales cycle. But these Gen AI tools on some of these like sales tools are able to help our sellers get there. So again, the whole point of all these Gen AI is not to replace a person or a sales team. It's like a co-pilot to you. So when you fly a plane, you have a co-pilot, first officer and a captain. Same thing. It's there to drive with you. And the human agency, the nuance, the client understanding will then help to craft this so that it delivers value to your clients and to your sales process. So there's a combination of consumer grade generative AI, which many of us use, and there's investment grade generative AI when you need to make business decisions, millions of dollars, billions of dollars. And that's why AlphaSense is there. So it's one of a growing range of generative AI tools that everyone is thinking about today.
I like that because I never saw it from that point of view. Sometimes I go into those kind of like sales calls, right? And then there'll be like the person I'm talking to, and then there'll be one other profile down there, which clearly, it's just an AI collecting, like recording that thing. And I was like, record for what, right? So, and this is only a trend within a few months. Yes. It's not even been a year, right? You start to see all these assistant, they record the whole thing. But now that you bring it up, okay, it makes sense. Because as I record those things, I can feed it into my decision-making matrices to know, okay, this sales was successful. Why? And then use that to study across the board and then get AI to give me some sort of, information across all. Because my first thing is that I got no time to read through all the transcripts, but okay, that's interesting. Can you give one more?
Another good example of generative AI, this time I'll use an AlphaSense example.
Yeah, sure, please.
Yeah? A lot of analysts, when they're trying to say review earnings call season, they've got 10, 20 companies in their portfolio. That's a lot. And instead of manually reading through every earnings transcript, reading every line, highlighting it, organizing them in different folders by portfolio companies, creating a grid, it's almost like what people say, like it's like Excel meets AI, where let's say there's a 10 by 10 grid. So 10 companies, and then you've got 10 questions you want to ask, like what are their risks? What are their growth plans? What's their pricing strategy? What are their M&A goals? What is their succession plan for the CEO? And so today, like generative AI, like using generative grid like AlphaSense is able to do that. That's just one tactical example of how clients are finding value, whether it's prepping for investor calls, for meetings, presenting strategy to their board of directors.
Okay, fair. And to be fair, those decisions are high value. Essentially what you say, investment grade AI, right? Because most people use consumer day to day, although those things are really enabling a lot of day to day ops function, but I think essentially the real alpha is in this kind of high value decisions.
That's correct.
It's no longer just in ops, because ops these days you're not doing it, you're out already,
yes.
Right? So this is the future, right? So it is what it is. I think every business owner need to catch up. Sometimes it feels like it never ends. This catch up very tiring. Yeah.
And the gift of all this generative AI is that it becomes a good leveler. Like in Singapore, where this little red dot or SMEs that say, how do I compete with all these large companies? Generative AI is a great leveler, because just because a company is larger doesn't mean they're using it better than you. In fact, it could be the opposite sometimes, where there's so many legacy processes already that it's harder for them to move. So SMBs that really use generative AI, you hear a lot of venture capital PE say, right now, to get $1 million in revenue, it used to be a 50-person firm. Now a 5-person firm could generate $1 million business because of the support of generative AI, not just for sales, but to even build products. Like even your software, your code is being supported by generative AI. So it is a huge opportunity for SMBs in the world of generative AI today.
It's true. I mean, and I don't mind telling our audience, right? Like, even on our end, we are thinking of how to use these AI products to the best of its ability to then create products, media products as it moves, right? So, and then with some of these analysis data sets at the back, right, I don't even need to come into studio record with you. I can immediately get something going and let it fly first, test if the numbers make sense. Then we do a bigger, investment into certain media elements, right? So this all every business is changing, as a result of all these tools, and then people do need to catch up, especially on the sales front, and the product front. I think those things are very important. I'm very happy that you went way past keywords, because a lot of salespeople, a lot of keywords are very annoying.
Yeah, what does it mean? What do I do today?
What does it mean, right?
Yes.
So that's great. So maybe any last words for all the aspiring sales leaders out there, for the future, right? Because there probably was a way to do sales 10, 20 years ago, and then what is the future in the next 10 years? Cannot even say 20. These years, every year, a lot changes, right? So any aspiring last words for sales leaders?
For sales leaders, I think be intentional about how the cross-functional team comes together, whether it's marketing, whether it's enablement, or all our core sales personas, SDRs, As, account managers, product specialists, coming together to be owners of the book of business together. When a company grows, people naturally become more siloed. The way to reduce the impact of silos, you cannot eliminate it, but the way to reduce it is by shared language, a common ground, a common vision. That way, a higher percentage of your team will be owners of your business and want to be successful with you. When you do that, that gives you the energy, because as your company grows from SMB to mid-market, you cannot be everywhere. So you need to deputize and create leaders in your firm. And that's one of my core mandates to ensure that, again, we're not just nurturing strong sellers, but strong leaders across the business as well.
Nice. And this all comes from Daren with a lot of experience in different sales teams. All right, so not some kacang putih. Hey, sorry. Those kind of weird people out there on LinkedIn, right? But you have a track record, and based on our discussion, I can tell, there's a lot of depth to this. So we hope that this helps you and staying informed on the latest trends on building a tech-enabled sales team. I think for all business owners, all founders, all management, it's all about growing rev, right? I mean, of course, it's about deriving profit and all the social mission. All those things are correct. But if you do not have that kind of growing business in a sustainable way, very, very soon all your mission also gone, right? So that's the reality of the business category. Thank you. Lovely chatting with you. And that's the end for our TFC Business Show. It's really nice doing this episode with AlphaSense. For more details, check out in the description box below. If you want to connect with Daren, I think LinkedIn probably is the best place. And with that, that's the end. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.